After a memorable Australian Open, 9 out of the top 10 women's tennis players are back in action for the first WTA 1000 tournament of 2025 in Doha. Iga Swiatek, the current queen of Qatar, is going for her fourth consecutive title here, while world number one Aryna Sabalenka seeks to build a bigger gap between her and the rest of the field in the rankings. Speaking of the field, it's very stacked, as almost everywhere you turn, there's a mouth-watering popcorn match in Doha. I'll go over the draw and predict who I think will take home that coveted Golden Eagle. Hey, I'm Christian Bassnight, and welcome to Christian's Court, where I cover tennis from all angles. If you have not yet already, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you are notified whenever I post more updates throughout this tournament. First, looking at the projected quarterfinal matchups, we have a rematch of the US Open final potentially on the cards between Aryna Sabalenka and Jessica Pegula. Then a meeting between Coco Gauff and Emma Navarro potentially. Chinwen Zhang and Jasmine Paolini are projected to meet in the quarterfinals as well. And then a rematch of last year's final between Elena Rybakina and Iga Swiatek is a possibility in this Elite Eight. First, looking at Aryna Sabalenka's section, Sabalenka, she won this title back in 2020, and she has not played here since 2022. She did go deep in Melbourne, of course, finishing runner-up, and I wonder how she'll recover both mentally and physically. I think that she will be a little bit more vulnerable here, to be honest, considering that, she did play quite a bit of tennis, considering Brisbane and then Melbourne, and then having to get over the disappointment of not accomplishing the three-peat. A little bit of the wind is kind of taken out of Sabalenka's sails, so it'll be interesting to see how she'll recover for this tournament. Sabalenka will open against the winner of Emma Raducanu and Katerina Alexandrova, and that is a rematch of their Australian Open first round match where Raducanu somehow she won that match in straight sets. Alexandrova really should get revenge here. I think she's the better player right now, and she should be riding high on confidence, just picking up the biggest title of her career about a week ago in Linz. I think that Sabalenka will probably want to hope for Raducanu to pull up the win, because I believe that Ekaterina will definitely pose her the bigger threats. Sabalenka does hold a tight 4-3 head-to-head advantage over Ekaterina, and Alexandrova was actually the only player to take a set off of Sabalenka when Sabalenka won the US Open last year. Clara Tauson is a potential third round opponent for Sabalenka, and Clara gave her some fits in their Australian Open match too. She could also face Anna Konskaya there in the third round, but I don't think that'll happen, as Anna has been struggling with injuries all season. She had to pull out of the Australian Open, and she retired from the Singapore semifinals due to an injury. In the bottom portion, you have Jessica Pegula with a tough opening round match any way you slice it, as she'll play either Marketa Vondrousova or Elena Svitolina. Vondrousova picked up a couple of solid wins to make the Abu Dhabi quarterfinal, and then Svitolina, she recently made the Australian Open quarterfinals. Daria Kasatkina, she's down there as well. She plays Anastasia Potapova in the opening round, who is currently in the semifinals of Cluj. I think Arena's biggest threats on paper are in the top half when you consider, Alexandrova and Towson. Of course, Pegula is tough, but Sabalenka does have a solid 6-2 head-to-head record over the American. Although, again, I do have the feeling, though, that Sabalenka might be a little bit vulnerable and off her game here in Doha, so I would not be surprised if Pegula got her lick back if they did meet in the quarterfinals. Now, I was close to having Big Lenka progress, but I'll give the slight edge here to Pegula to make the semifinals. Next, got to talk about Coco Gauff in her section, and I'm intrigued to see which Coco we get in Doha. If we get more United Cup Coco Gauff, then she'll win the whole thing, I think. But her Melbourne form will not be good enough, I think, to win this title. She struggled a lot here last year. She didn't win her opening round match against Katerina Siniakova, so I'm still not sure whether the conditions really suit her all that great. She will likely play Marta Kostyuk in the opening round, which I think will be tricky. Their first three meetings were absolute slugfest, but Coco cruised by Kostyuk in their most recent affair at Wuhan last year, only dropping 5 games. I think this match against Kostyuk will be tougher than Gauff's potential round of 16 match, whoever she plays there. Then in the quarterfinals for Gauff, she'll likely want to seek revenge, as she could play either Paula Badosa, who beat her at the Australian Open quarterfinals this year, or Emma Navarro, who stopped her in the fourth rounds of both Wimbledon and US Open last year. Amanda Anisimova is a dangerous floater there, though. She opens against Victoria Azarenka, which should be a winnable match for the American. I can see Amanda going on a little bit of a run here, and I think she too has a great head-to-head against Gauff, but I am going to stick with the top-ranked American Coco to progress, regardless of if she faces Anisimova, which I think she will in the quarterfinals, or she faces Badosa or Navarro. While I do think that Badosa and Navarro, obviously they've given her a lot of challenges in the past, they're still beatable opponents, and I think Coco would ultimately get her lick back if she even played those two. Next, Jasmine Paolini section, and I think there's some good opportunity here as the top two seeds here, Qinwen Zhang and Jasmine Paolini, are not heading into Doha high on a lot of confidence. Up top, Qinwen, she's looking to put her disappointing second round Australian Open exit behind her and looks to get a positive start to her 2025 campaign. I think that she will play Ons Jabeur for her opening round match in Doha, which will be tough considering how she looked pretty solid in Abu Dhabi, nearly taking down the top seed Rybakina in the quarterfinals. You also got Princess Diana Schneider here, who will start against a qualifier, and if she wins her opener, she'll face an American in either Sophia Kenin or Ashton Kruger. And Kruger, she's currently in the Abu Dhabi finals. At the bottom part here, Jasmine Paolini probably has the best draw out of all the top seeds. She'll open against Yuan or Caroline Garcia, and neither of those women are high on confidence at the moment. Ludmila Samsonova is a solid player, but she's kind of streaky herself. There's no telling whether she'll even make it as far to even play Paolini in that match. And then Lulu Sun has not done much since her Wimbledon quarterfinal run. And same thing with Elena Ostapenko, actually. The Latvian has only won 2 singles matches since SW19 last year. Paolini is going to want Qinwen Zhang to lose definitely before the quarterfinals, as the Italian has a 0-4 head-to-head record against the 7th seed. I don't know what to expect from Qinwen considering how she has only played 2 matches this season. I think we might see Schneider or Jabeur in her place instead in that quarterfinal. And I think that I'll go ahead and go with the Schneider-Paolini quarterfinal, and I'm going to have Diana Schneider actually to make the semifinals here. Then finally is Iga Swiatek section. Of course, as I mentioned earlier, the poll is going for a 4-for-4 in Doha. At the top, Elena Rybakina has a pretty good section, all things considered. Rybakina will play either Diana Yastremska or Peyton Stearns, who are both solid players. Diana, I think, is in better form right now as she made the Linz final. But I think both Yastremska and Stearns are kind of a little bit unstable, and I still expect Elena to clear. Mira Andreeva, Elena Rybakina's potential third round opponent. I think that's a very winnable match for Rybakina. And then in the quarterfinals, of course, things will get tricky for the Kazakh, as she will likely have to face Iga Swiatek. And clearly, Iga loves it here. Iga, though, she does have an interesting draw, and it's kind of tough, as she could open against Maria Sakkari. I don't think that's going to be too tough, considering how Sakkari hasn't been playing top 10 tennis in over about a year now. And then she could play either Donna Vekic, Linda Noskova, or Yulia Putintseva. And Noskova and Putintseva both beat Iga last year. Swiatek will definitely need to be on her game here. And to be honest, I was kind of initially leaning a bit towards Rybakina and taking down Iga in that quarterfinal, but I just simply cannot trust her in big match situations. She did do well to beat Jabeur in that tight quarterfinal in Abu Dhabi, but that semifinal loss to Belinda Bencic was a bit disappointing, and I don't know if she has the true belief at this point to beat Iga. So Iga is going to be my pick to make another semifinal in Doha. So for my predictions, I have a Pegula Gauff semifinal as well as Schneider and Swiatek. Then in the finals, I have a rematch of the 2023 final between Iga and Jessica, and I have Swiatek once again coming out on top of this one. Now, I would not be surprised at all if Sabalenka came through and won the whole thing. I was kind of thinking of having her make the final, but I don't envision her being on her P's and Q's quite right here in Doha, to be honest. I think the biggest threat to Iga winning the title would ultimately be Rybakina in the quarterfinals, and maybe Elena could do her big one and get the win, but I think that she needs another tournament or two before she hits her stride completely. Then Coco Gauff, I kind of course, overlooked her a bit. I think having her make the semifinals isn't it's a good result ultimately. I had her losing to Pegula because Pegula is not the best matchup for Coco overall. And I envision Jessica kind of bringing better form than she did in Melbourne. And I think she's destined for a good start here at the first 1,000 of the year, because she did play well in Adelaide where she finished runner-up to Madison Keys. And then even talking about Gauff section, I did snub Emma Navarro and Paula Badosa. Of course, those two could do their big ones as well and potentially, make the final. I don't think either of them would win the title. I'd say probably Navarro would have a better shot, slightly better shot at doing that. But their match in Melbourne shows that even if Emma does face Iga in that final, it wouldn't be pretty for Navarro. The matchup is just not in her favor. Talking about my eventual champion, I think even though she has not won a title yet this season, Iga has played very good thus far this year. She's clearly very comfortable in Doha too, and I think that she's going to be the favorite. So I'll definitely pick her to go 4 for 4 here. That is it for my Doha tournament preview and draw analysis. Let me know your thoughts on the draw and who you think had the short end of the stick in terms of, the luck of the draw. And also, do you agree with me having Iga and Jessica in the final? If not, who do you think will be in the championship instead? And who do you think will win the title? Let me know in the comments. Again, make sure you subscribe and click the notification bell so you are notified whenever I post daily coverage of this upcoming tournament. Of course, thank you all so much for watching and for your support. And I will see you all next time here on Christian's Court.